Welcome back to The Short Game. This is a show where we talk about short video games, games that respect your time. I'm Reagan Kelly, and I'm joined by my awesome co-hosts, Nate Heininger. How are you doing, Nate?
I don't know, man. You finally convinced us to play a dating sim, and this is the one that we do.
This is not my fault.
I don't know what you wanted from me from this, but here we are.
Here we are. Here also is my other co-host, Laura Nash. How are you doing, Laura?
I don't know whether or not I should be worried about myself that I'm apparently not as messed up over this game as Nate apparently is. It's a little worried about my sanity, but I'm good otherwise.
It's fine. I just, Reagan's been hounding us pretty much since I met him. Before we even had the podcast, all he talks about is dating sims.
This is slander. This is slander, and I will not have it on my podcast.
Nate, you gotta get in the dating sim game. You gotta, I finally, I have nothing against the genre. It's just not, what I look for in games. Finally acquiesce, and I play at the behest of
Reagan's
Reagan.
defense, most of the dating sims that he was asking us to play were like, date this cute dog.
Sure. However you want to spin it. And we finally play this one. And you know what? I'm glad I played it. I'm glad we're here. But is this what they're all like? Is this what dating sims do?
Interestingly enough, yes. No. This week we're talking about Doki Doki Literature Club. And this is so I originally wasn't planning on covering this on the show. I played it just, because it got a lot of buzz around like November, I think, when it came out. And it is a fascinating game and very unusual. And we'll get into why in a few minutes. And it had a lot of buzz. It's a free game on Steam, and it's out on itch.io as well. And I read a few pieces about it that hinted darkly that there's more to this game than meets the eye. But I wasn't originally planning on doing it for the show, but we have had tons of people request that we talk about it on the short game. And so, happy to do it, but, bear with us. This isn't really our normal wheelhouse.
Yeah, sometimes you finish a game and you think, I don't know what to say about that experience. And I think that's part of what this game is going for. So if throughout this we have moments of, I don't know what to say about this game, I think that's part of its intention, and makes it difficult to have sort of our free-form conversation that we normally do.
It's a really interesting game, and we'll talk about the sort of details of how surprising it is once we get past the spoiler break. But I'll say right off the top that this game, we're going to have a very early, very hard and fast spoiler break. So this episode, it's been months since this came out and it's a free game. If this is a game that appeals to you, then there's a good chance you've already played it. Welcome to the show. If not, I would recommend playing this game before listening to really anything that we have to say about it.
And if you're unsure whether or not this game is right for you, listen to this sentence, and this is the Steam description. The Literature Club is full of cute girls. Will you write the way into their heart? This game is not suitable for children or those who are easily disturbed. Spoiler break, basically.
What I love about this is that the game's marketing materials, the Steam page, the page on itch.io, the game's webpage, everything...
The first screen after the title.
Right. Everything that the game tells you about itself is a 100% straight up moe anime dating sim, and a pretty cliche one at that. Like it looks at least reasonably polished, probably more so than a lot of these that I've seen. It's not a genre that I spend a lot of time digging through games in or whatever, but this looks like a very polished, very okay moe anime dating sim. But the only hint that the game gives you that there's more to it than that is that sort of content warning. This game is not suitable for children or those who are easily disturbed. And seeing that on the title screen of Doki Doki Literature Club is undoubtedly a very intriguing thing. Like I was like, okay, I can't wait to see what this game wants to throw at me, what it's going to be doing. And it takes a while before it decides to like pull that curtain back.
It's funny. It's like a splash screen of like four, clearly like teenage girls. And it's like, this is disturbing content. You're just like, oh God, what am I getting myself
in? Oh, gross. Yeah.
Oh no, Reagan, what have you convinced me to play? Reagan and your horde of bots who have been fake writing into us to convince us to play this game.
So if you don't know anything else about this and you're still on the fence about deciding whether or not to play this game, a few other things that I think would be worth saying. The game masquerades essentially as a moe anime dating sim, but at its core, I think it's more of a psychological horror game. So if that's a genre that you are very interested in, then I think this would definitely be something that you should check out.
And if you're worried about what type of disturbing content is in the game, there are content warnings available for the game you can check out beforehand, because there's different different people have different issues with different things, and easily disturbed is a huge net to throw out.
Yeah, this game begs for like content warnings, trigger warnings, etc. If that's the sort of thing that you want to know about before playing a game with rather extreme content, then take the time to look that stuff up for yourself before deciding whether or not to play this game. I think the game probably is somewhat better without spoilers. And if you're the sort of person who's very sensitive to spoilers, then you probably already know for yourself whether you're likely to be disturbed by content in a video game. But if you are the sort of person who wants to avoid certain types of graphic imagery, or
if you're the type of person who looks up every jump scare before they see the horror movie, maybe look it up.
Yeah, and this also continues our fantastic trend of not having horror psychological games to play around Halloween, but seeming to find plenty of them around like Valentine's Day and in February and March.
God, we play a nice cute dating sim for February, and unfortunately it's this. So
yeah.
Happy Valentine's Day, everybody. Hope your month is going great. Last year we did Oxenfree. We are just terrible.
That's right.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. We did Until Dawn.
Yeah, we did Until Dawn in February as well.
And then we get to October. Yeah, we get to October and we're like, man, if only we had like a scary game to play. Like we just continues the run of being bad at scheduling, basically.
Yeah. So before we go to our spoiler break, should we just talk a little bit about sort of what personal baggage we're bringing with us to this experience, like what our experience is with dating sims and anime and the other stuff that this game sort of wears on its sleeve?
Not that kind of baggage. Dating sim baggage.
Sure. I have not played really any dating sims before this. It's not a genre that I'm particularly that I've been drawn to before. Though it does remind me of when I was like 14 or like 13. I stayed the night at my friend's house, and we found on I don't know, like Newgrounds or even like pre-Newgrounds, a bunch of these like silly dating games that always ended really, really, really raunchy. And that's about the extent of my experience with dating sims. And so when I saw this game, I'm like, it's a bunch of like teenage girls and it says terrible, disturbing imagery. I'm like, oh God, what am I getting myself into? And that's the extent of my dating simulator experience. So this was a whole new world for me.
I was put in a really odd place to play this game because the day before I started it, I saw the documentary Tokyo Idols. It's on Netflix, but I saw it at a film center, which is an entire movie about like the idol culture in Japan and all these 50-year-old male fans of like 16-year-old girls and all the like otaku sexualization of young ladies. It's wonderful, but it was a really weird place to then play this game. Other than that, most of my dating sims have been about animals, and most of my anime has been stuff like Yuri on Ice, where it's like, oh, look at the cute guys. I want them to kiss and skate. So Yeah, it doesn't surprise anybody. I'm sure the listeners are not like, oh yeah, Laura really likes the type of anime where they talk about how big boobs are. I'm not offended by it. It's just kind of awkward. There's just not much there for me. Sometimes, I'd rather have I don't need squeaky clean stuff, but it just sometimes is like, I wish I could fast forward through that kind of thing, which makes a lot of dating sims that I would otherwise be really into just like, it's just so not written for me that you could tell they don't care about me, that you just kind of want to hit fast forward. And you can't fast forward through a dating sim because it's all writing. So that's why I haven't played a ton of them when they're, again, ain't nothing wrong with the male gaze. It just doesn't mean I should play it.
Yeah.
I don't like wheel this out very often, but I probably am the biggest like weeb on the show. I like anime. I don't make that like a core part of my public or private personas, and it's not something that I like talk about very much.
Listeners, he's currently wearing a Freedom Planet t-shirt.
Hey, Freedom Planet is very good. All right, that game was great.
Again, animals are great.
Yeah,
I love Freedom Planet. It's we haven't dipped into the Freedom Planet joke well for a long time, and here you are wearing
So my point being that I'm fully versed in the cliches and tropes that this game is playing with. I've watched I've watched my fair share of harem anime, which is what they call the sort of subgenre of like one weird dude surrounded inexplicably by a ton of hot girls who are all inexplicably in love with him and fighting over him.
Mary Sue anime, basically.
Right, yeah. Not my favorite genre. I find that stuff pretty boring, but I'm certainly familiar with the genre. And in terms of dating sims, like, I'm not really like a huge fan of dating sims proper, but I do love when dating sim elements find their ways into other games. So I love any game that has a romance story to it, even if it's not one that plays out in a visual novel style. Look at things like, I don't know, even things like Life is Strange. Like I that kind of stuff really works for me, and I seek out games that have some level of romance in them just because I find that really like, I like that. It helps me connect with the characters.
I like to give you shit for it, but I think that's fine too. I think, I also like an element of romance in a video game. I think most people do. I think it's a human connection. And
I mean, nobody calls Mass Effect a dating sim, but it is.
Exactly.
I mean, there's dating sim element. That's something that's really interesting about dating sims as a genre, is that like, it's something that the ideas that the core ideas of dating sims have filtered their way into tons of other games. But it's funny, in the US at least, we really only see or play dating sims that are either like dating sim elements in a larger game that is something else, or games that are subverting or kind of making fun of or parodying the dating sim genre. I mean, we did an episode on Hatoful Boyfriend.
Bird Week!
Yes. And
I hate missing episodes, but the one that like pains me the most is missing the bird focused episode, because it's just so stupid and perfect.
We could do another one of those anytime. For some reason, birds are just a thing in video games. We could do another Bird Week anytime. But like, yeah, anyway, like I think dating sims as a genre are mostly not that interesting. But like I also, in terms of like visual novels, I've played a few. I was a big fan of the Danganronpa games. So like, anyway, I'm coming to this understanding the genre, but not usually thinking that this style of game was for me.
Yeah.
But knowing that there was a kind of a twist to this, that it wasn't what it on first glance appears to be, I was interested in checking it out, and I guess here we are.
I think of dating sims as a combination of that kind of resource management and a interactive fiction, because so much of it is balancing how much you're wooing different people. It's very much a like counter-y game where you're trying to level up certain parts of the game, or get to certain levels so you can hook up with people. So I actually really like that type of game. Just sometimes I get stuck on the narrative not being as good as I want it to be.
Yeah, I've gotten really into it when it is an element of the game. Like, one of my favorite series of all time is the Harvest Moon series. And you could argue that that is a dating simulator with a farming, element to it, depending on what you decide to like focus on the game. Because I know I almost get like, okay, I got to get all my crops so I can get an egg and bring it to the shopkeep so I can like get her heart from, red from blue to red or whatever. Like it ended up being a really important part of the game to me. So I've gotten into the dating element of like the romance element of games many, many times. And I think that is a fun part. I've just almost never played a game that is like dating is or romance or whatever is the game and it is all that you're like striving to do. And that's not really what Doki Doki even is necessarily doing. It's a little more complex and your character, what it's trying to accomplish is a little different, but it's still a genre that I have almost no experience in like the pure dating sim.
Yeah.
Other than a really weird night when I was like 14.
So all that understood, we're going to be discussing the details of this game, a game that is very much based on surprising you. So we're about to have a spoiler break. If you haven't played the game, I'd strongly recommend going and checking it out. How long did this game take you guys to play?
You need to play it several times. So although the pace you might think is like 30 to 45 minutes for your first playthrough, the game is not complete until you've played it several times, unlike other. So I'd say save a couple hours.
Yeah, I think for me going through, I think I hit all of the endings but one. There's one sort of quite difficult to get ending, and I did not get that one. But I got all of the endings but one, and I'm pretty sure I played for less than 4 hours.
Yeah, I think 3.5 got me through.
So this game is available for free, which is really something. And it's available on Steam and itch.io, and you can play it on Windows or Mac. So we'll have links to the game in the show notes. But I'm sure if you search for it, Doki Doki Literature Club, it'll be the very first result. Go check it out. And here it is, your spoiler break. I really should start collecting all the times when Nate does that and just like make a techno song that's just Nate pretending to do the spoiler break in all 160 episodes.
I would love that.
Yeah, and also at the end, because every time it ends, like either Nate or I go da 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 da, like the end of almost every episode.
Yep. Can you imagine thousands of da 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 da's all at once?
You just layer them on top of each other. See if we're in the same key.
Da 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 da. There's another one for you.
Okay.
All right. So I didn't know anything about this game, and I had a ton of different things going through my head. What the graphic depiction, like what the graphic element of it was going to be.
Oh,
and
I was sure it was going to be rape.
Oh, I thought it. So
I'm so glad that it wasn't.
Yeah, I thought it was gonna be dragons or. Like,
Nate, I want to live in your world.
Nate, wait.
Disturbing dragons.
So I went through a lot of different versions of what. So part of me was like, "Oh, it's actually nothing," and they're tricking, and they're tricking us.
That would be an incredible troll.
All of the reviewers are in on it. It would be so good
if they just put like a straight up dating sim and it was like nothing but cute.
Oh, what if all the warnings are just the subtle misogyny of the dating sim is actually what's disturbing? like the vague boob brushes are what actually the disturbing warnings, and it's like, think about yourself.
The real disturbing was the molestation we made along the way.
Oh yeah, that's really unwanted touching.
I remember the truly horrifying moment when the screen dimmed and I saw my own reflection.
What have I done? And then I was like, I don't know. I thought I just disturbing image. It played it so straight. I kept waiting for the twist into the absurd, and that's I was waiting for something to happen that would blow the whole thing up and it would become like wild anime something. I don't know. I didn't know what to expect, but
had to be something, or like some people wouldn't have told us to play it.
Yeah, I don't know. I had no expectations. I knew people wanted us to play it, but I
sat down to play this because Gita Jackson, who writes for Kotaku, among other places, wrote like a piece about it. Not a super long one, but like a little article over there titled "Doki Doki Literature Club Scared Me Shitless." And so I was like, what? Okay. The big header image is this very cute anime girl. And so, I read her review of it, which was very non-spoilery, but did explain that this is a game that starts with this very cliche, tropey visual novel anime thing, and very slowly but surely veers off into psychological horror and very dark themes, including a bunch of jump scares, but also what she really stressed was that this is a game that doesn't just scare you with jump scares. This is a game that scares you with like a real feeling of dread and dark shit happening to cute characters. But I didn't know what else much to expect out of it apart from that. But what was really strange about my experience with the game? Like I sat down to play this. It was a day off. I guess it was probably a Sunday. Early morning, nothing much else to do. Sat there with a cup of coffee and decided to boot up Doki Doki Literature Club on my laptop, sitting there in my robe. And
no, don't need that image.
Yes, you did.
Yeah, why? You just kept going.
Yep. And chest hair, poking out the top.
Exactly.
It was hoping you're all visualizing this really well. And so I don't like to admit this about this because like this game, like it's tropes that I see through 100%. But I started playing the game and I thought the characters were cute, and I was like, I mean, the writing's not amazing, but it's okay. It's it's tropey as hell, but wow, this is like it's not that bad. I was like, I'm okay. And so the game takes a long time before it hits that darkness. It really starts to try to get you comfortable in this sort of very cliched tropey thing. And that part, like, I'm not going to say that it worked for me, but it achieved its goal of like lulling me into a false sense of security, even though like I had some foreknowledge that there was something kind of dark here. That beginning part is like long enough and is like a pitch perfect, I don't even want to call it a parody, but it's like a pitch perfect imitation of that sort of tropey anime story. Like I by the time I got to the dark stuff, I kind of forgot that was coming.
Why don't we talk about that a little bit? Because I think it is interesting how they handle that. Not playing many dating sims, but still understanding sort of like the tropes of them. You're playing a character, you get to name them. It's whoever you want. I made the mistake. It says, "What's your name?" So I put my name in. Never doing
Bad
that
move.
again.
Bad move.
In a dating sim. I put my name in.
I was a hot boy named Sabrina because I thought I could choose my gender in the game, and I was wrong.
That's kind of a bummer, actually. Yeah.
They just kept talking about how hot this boy Sabrina was, and I was like, well, yeah, Sabrina's super hot.
Yeah. and so you play as Sabrina, and it starts, you're going to like the bus stop, and that annoying girl that you grew up with who you wouldn't normally be friends, like immediately taking this sort of like holier than thou, like I am the smart one and the smartest, human in the world, and I see things clearly and no one else sees things as clearly as I do, sort of like, young man. And
it felt very like obviously it's very anime, but it felt very like I am generic anime main character.
I am a nerd and into I don't read books. Books are for girls.
I'm into games and anime.
And yet all of them are like, a boy has graced us with their presence. Let's date this
and it's
boy.
like yeah, it's like logic dictates my decision making, and I am capable of handling myself in any moment. And it is these dumb girls who cannot contain themselves around me. I will be the one who answers this question.
I'll give the protagonist slightly more credit than that. Like he's got a, I didn't like 100% buy into any of this stuff because it's it's a thin stuff to go on. But I think by definition, like that's what this style is. This is not a failing of the game. It's just that these are thin characters, but they're tropes that are like, these are the anime girl tropes. You've got the Sayori, the main sort of your childhood friend love interest. That is like such a trope. Like, oh, we've been friends since childhood, so we could never like each other like that. And she's also the sort of like clumsy but sweet, genuine character. This is anime in bright lights. And on the other characters, she's recruiting you to her after school club, another very anime thing. I mean, yes, this is a thing, presumably, as far as I know, from actual Japanese high schools, but like half of all anime is about like clubs and club drama, it seems like. So
yeah, and I just want to throw in real quick, I was making fun of the main character, but I do believe it's all purposeful. I don't think that the writers are like, this is a character that is real and serious and like deserving of our like respect. I think it's purposeful that he's this like, whole, like smarter than everyone, sort of logic.
I saw that the developer in an interview someplace, and I can't find it at the moment, but the developer was talking about how this game was sort of born out of a love-hate relationship that he has with anime, which like reads, this is that you can tell that this is a game made by a true anime expert who also sort of sees through the bullshit of anime.
It reminds me of the fan fiction I'd read that was like parodies of people writing about bad fan fiction. Like that's what this reminded me of more than anything. I'm not saying that this is bad writing, but it's just the fact that you can make a super trope dense piece of writing only if you are an expert in the field and kind of ambivalent about it.
Yeah.
And it reads perfectly.
Yeah.
So.
And so just to lay out the characters, there are 4 dateable girls. And this is box copy for a game like this. You want to know, okay, how many girls can I date? You can date 4 girls. Oh. So there are 4 dateable girls in the literature club. There's Sayori, your friend we mentioned. There's Monica, the unapproachable, too good for you girl who's inexplicably very nice to you, but she's friendly and tall and beautiful and athletic and perfect, etc. And
the president.
Oh, and the president of the literature club, of course.
She's in power.
She started the literature club, because she was just so fed up with the politics of the other club. She decided to start her own club.
Boo.
Yeah, she thought it would be better if she just made her own club.
God bless her. And the other 2 are also the anime tropes. There's the dark-haired beauty. What's her name? Yuri. Yuri
Who
is.
I was dating mostly.
Oh, I mean, I was mostly interested in her too. If we're talking about
we all
who we're dating. Ooh.
Dude, if you think that something's gonna go wrong in a dating sim, you want the gothist scary girl who likes horror to be on your side.
Absolutely.
Like, she's gonna know. I thought this was gonna go like dark, like The Ring style. So I was like, I gotta get this goth girl because she's gonna protect me from the evil.
Yeah.
Didn't work out that way.
Not so much exactly, yeah. And the fourth and final girl is what's her name? Sorry, I don't have it in front of me. Natsuki. Natsuki is the she's little, she's the sort of Napoleon complex girl, tough but small, and also she bakes.
They mention a few times that she's flat.
Yes. All of their
very
boobs
important character trait. Their boobs are an important character trait.
As you'd expect.
I can bring this up and you two can't.
Thank you, Laura. There was a part of the thing with Yuri too is I kept having this sense that like I knew something tragic was going to happen, and that's part of what they're going for. I was like, ooh, maybe it's like a school shooting thing. that was a part of my thought too. It was like dragons or
So
school
American.
shooting. Yeah, right. And I was like, yeah, I don't know. It just that was in the back of my head too. So I'm like, oh, I got to make everyone happy because I don't want anyone to. I don't know. That was just running in the back of my head.
So I guess well, I mean, this progresses in exactly the way that you expect a dating sim to. I guess the one thing that it did that I thought was clever, just from a dating sim side, before we got into anything creepy, was the mechanic of creating poems to impress the various girls. So just to sort of explain, the game initially is on this cycle of days. You'd go into school, you'd have a meeting with the literature club, and then at night you'll write a poem to present at the next meeting of the literature club. And so it has I thought kind of a good mechanic, like a kind of a good idea for how that would work. It gives you a list of words, and the words are all different sort of themes. So some of them will be things like fun, cotton candy, bright, and then others will be like depression or
vibrant or lust or
it seemed to be either words that were like about there would be like dark toned sort of like words of I don't know, the sort of like goth-esque words would be for Yuri, and then you'd have the like bubblegum, sort of fun words, and that'd be for Natsuki. And then the words about like experiencing life, that would be for Sayori.
Yeah.
And every time you pick one of the words, there's those little, the little like
very
paper cutouts
cute little chibi versions of the characters.
Yeah, with like jump when you picked a word that they like.
Yeah. So I actually like, just from a straight up dating sim aspect, I thought that was a clever idea. I liked the idea of like creating a poem to present at the class, and that by creating that poem, you're trying to like influence the different girls to like you more. And then every time when you get back to the club, there'd be a scene where you, in any order, could pick each of the four girls to share your poem with them and then read their poem. And this was probably the first place the game started vaguely hinting that not all was as it seemed to be, or not all is like right in these characters' lives and experiences. Like, some of the poems are very cute. Sayori's very first poem is like about breakfast, and she's like, I love making breakfast. The sun is bright. Everything's delicious. Pancakes, But some of the other characters' poems, even right from the beginning, are like interesting and kind of not exactly dark, but like kind of off.
The stuff that if I had written in like elementary or middle school, like I would have been called into the psychiatric office and been like, girl, what's going on? Because that seriously happened in middle school. I remember several people during poetry class getting called out.
Oh man, that's a
for
minefield.
Dark themes. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. I actually really, I really enjoyed this part of the game. I thought it was, and this is where I started to, it was during this like phase of the game where I started to think like, oh, there is nothing actually graphic about this game. It's like they were setting me up, but it's actually a really good discussion about poetry and the like importance of the language that you use, because like Natsuki thinks that simple and understandable language is the best way to get across feelings, and then Yuri thinks that like, no, you need to use the expanse of the written word to get across. Like that's why we have such a deep vocabulary. It's what we that's the best way to get across language.
Yeah.
And feelings. And I was like, that's a legitimate argument in both poetry and novel writing. Like that is something that is a constant discussion within, writing circles. Like who are you trying to write for, and what are you trying to accomplish with your writing, and how accessible is it, and what does that mean to your viewer? And I was like, oh, this is a good little like, they've somehow managed to like weave this very legitimate literature discussion into like a silly dating sim. And I'm like, maybe that's what this whole game actually is.
Yeah,
and
it definitely
like,
started pulling me in with that too. I actually thought that those scenes were pretty good. And the poems themselves were also, I mean, they're above average for your average like high school kid poem.
Yeah.
And they're also where like you first start seeing like hints that the characters have a personality to them that isn't just the trope that you see on the surface, kind of poking through. Particularly the very first poem that Monica reads or presents is kind of unsettling. I mean, it particularly like with any of these poems, if you like look back on them after getting to know like the secrets of the game, all of them say something about the characters that you may not have known at the time when reading the poem and probably couldn't have known. But like the Monica's first poem is not maybe a particularly good poem, but does have some kind of creepy or unsettling imagery. Like the last lines of it, it's all about looking out through a hole in a wall. And then when what she sees blinds her and scorches her retinas. And then the last lines are, I realize now that I wasn't looking in, I was looking out. And he on the other side was looking in, which, was kind of creepy. And it seems at odds with what you understand Monica's personality to be. Like you're expecting Monica to present some very like basic, but, accomplished,
I mean, she basic.
She is basic, right?
Not cool, Laura. Come on, this is a person with her. I don't know. I can't continue that.
I thought actually my very favorite poem in the whole game, just not from like a story standpoint, but just from like, okay, I like that poem. That was pretty good. Was Natsuki's very first poem. You can tell she's feeling like
it's
a little
so good.
Surly. I'm just going to read it because it's so short. It's called Eagles Can Fly, Monkeys Can Climb, Crickets Can Leap, Horses Can Race, Owls Can Seek, Cheetahs Can Run, Eagles Can Fly, People Can Try, but that's about it. Like, okay, I like that. Yeah, like, yeah. And I mean, all of their poems were like at least interesting to read. Like, I looked forward to these scenes, and I mean, I had to look forward to them sometimes for a while because once you do that, there's a lot of dialogue. These scenes kind of a little long for me. I mean, obviously they're lulling you into this false sense of security. They're letting you get to know these characters. It all serves a purpose. But my opinion is that this beginning section of the game had too much dialogue. It was a little long.
Agreed.
There's a lot of scenes with you and Sayori being like, boy, is she clumsy, and isn't she weird, and like, do we need each other.
Planning the like literature festival and deciding to spend time with one of them or the other when you're planning the festival, and et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. Oh, she bumped her head. What a klutz.
Yeah. Oh no, I accidentally touched her boobs. Oh no.
Oh no. How dare I accidentally touch boobs? And then it kind of turns into a while where it's like, I know what's best for you, my friend. And I was like, oh, character, you do not know what's best for this girl. Where's the call an adult button?
Yeah, right. There's so many times where I'm like, man, this protagonist is obnoxious. Like, I am the wise one, and you are all stupid girls, and it is up to me to save this situation. Like, there's so many times where he's like, clearly they don't know what to do, so I'll be the one to step in and save the moment. And it's just like, ugh. You are as obnoxious as anyone else in this game. But again, I think it's purposeful. But yeah, it was. Mm-hmm.
So where does this really, like in this first sort of playthrough? Where does the darkness begin to sort of show through for you guys?
I mean, there's talk of foreboding. I mean, Yuri's definitely into some weird stuff, and there is a line I screenshotted pretty early where they said, like, stagnating air is common foreshadowing that something terrible is about to happen. And that is around the time that the friend you're closest to is disappeared. She's gone home early. Anyone going home early in a game is sign of something bad happening. I think there's, you get this little bit of sense of foreshadowing and foreboding from the poems getting darker, especially the second one from Sayori, where she's talking about the bottles, like bottling her emotions, and her friends come over, and then there's no happy ones left because all the bottles are broken and her friends abandon her.
Yeah. Well, that's the first one that isn't like I'm so happy about breakfast, and that's when the
Yeah.
whole game. That's when the whole game starts to turn, really, and it's when you start. It's an inverse, like, sort of scale with how much you start connecting with another character,
Mhm.
because the game's like you can't. It kind of forces you to sort of pursue one of the other three girls, but really one of the other two, either Natsuki or Yuri. As
Yeah.
far as, at least in my playthrough, it kind of forces you to date or like to attempt to pursue one of those two. And as you get closer and closer with those two, it's the Sayori relationship starts to dwindle, and that's when everything starts to like get a little bit darker, and when you start to learn the truth about Sayori.
Yeah.
um, it's a pretty smooth transition. Like, even if you try to be like, no, I want to date Sayori, they kind of push you into forcing to kind of connect with one of the other girls, which drives the narrative forward. At least that was my experience. I
Yeah.
don't know if maybe there was
I think you're right.
other.
I mean, I think you really. It does feel like most dating sims do have this sort of middle of the game where you then need to start focusing on a particular girl, and it does sort of feel like you have the option of any of them except Monica, who's still this sort of unapproachable ideal or something, I guess. Um, I was focusing a little bit on Yuri, just because she goth. And so I got the same experience that you did, that Sayori was clearly starting to be like, she had that sort of like brave face of like, oh, I'm so happy that you're making friends with my friends, but it was clear that she was upset. And I mean, I don't think we can beat around the bush much further. Like, the game, uh, it all sort of leads up to Sayori suddenly committing suicide.
It's been telegraphed.
Yeah, I wouldn't
Pretty
necessarily
strongly,
say.
but-
I wouldn't necessarily say suddenly. I mean, she openly admits to dealing with depression.
yeah.
But also, I actually, like, kind of, again, I knew nothing about this game, but I actually like kind of tried to like date Sayori for the most part, and it still like pushed me into like connecting with one of the other girls, and that's where I ended up with kind of going more towards Yuri. So it seemed to me that I got kind of pushed into either Yuri or Natsuki to drive the sort of plot of Sayori becoming upset about you dating someone else.
Yeah, I think I actually got to give the game a little bit of credit for. I mean, I'm not like a subject matter expert or anything, but I thought that it's, particularly when it was just first starting to introduce Sayori's depression, I thought it was actually like a pretty good description of depression, and a depiction that really made me feel for Sayori. She's feeling like she can't connect with her friends, like her she's I can't, I don't know if I can really describe it, but like it did, I thought it gave a pretty good depiction of depression that I felt was at least felt more real than most of the sort of tropey stuff in the game.
Yeah. This is where I think it gets harder to talk about.
Yeah.
And this is where I think our experiences and every individual player's experience sort of comes and becomes their own focus on this game. But I do think that they did a really good job of the sort of expression of her depression. I still didn't really care for the main character's like way of handling it, but I thought that they did a good job of treating Sayori's depression and how she felt about it.
Yeah,
I thought it was very good.
It also, like, I kind of like that it never becomes about like, okay, how do I fix Sayori? Like, it's not a game about trying to, like, you can try to save Sayori. Like, your choices basically are, I think Sayori's depression is partly involved with her, like, thinking she's in love with you, the main character. And so you can choose to date her, but then no matter what you choose, you can choose to date her or spend time with her, but then I think she feels that she's like monopolizing you and making you miserable, and ruining what you have with the other characters, or you can spend time with the other characters and she feels abandoned. So either way, ultimately it leads to her hanging herself in her bedroom, and the scene where you discover her hanging in her bedroom is pretty horrifying. I mean, the illustration is like, it's a bit of a surprise. The illustration is really grim.
It's not dragons, as I was thinking.
I really want to know where that was
Spooky
coming from
ghost
for you,
either.
Nate. But you're right.
I don't know. I thought like I wasn't sure if this was gonna go with like I don't know why I wasn't expecting this, because it is such like, it is a horror movie image that you see at the hanging, but I was like, oh, she probably overdosed and you have to like resuscitate her, and I was like, nope, of course not. This is a horror game. You're an idiot.
But I guess what I like about it is that it is a very final thing. Like, when you see her and she's like hanging there dead, the game starts to glitch out a little bit. The main character is freaking out. The like narrative text is becoming like more and more like unhinged, and it illustrates that by showing like little glitches in the game graphics. He's thinking about like what he could have done to fix it, but when you go to try to load back, you can't. I think this is the first time that it starts screwing with your ability to use the saving system, which is like a really interesting kind of fourth wall break.
Yeah, I love to see this sort of screwing with your save system. The first time I saw it was Undertale, and they did it to great success.
Yeah, it's a funny thing. Like, of all the games that I've played, the one thing that this reminds me of most is Undertale, which is such a weird thing because they have like practically nothing in common. But the fourth wall breaking stuff. Oh, and the dating, the fourth wall breaking, the dating, the using the game features like saves as part of the narrative. All that stuff like has that in common. And one more thing it has in common: tons and tons of people writing to us on Twitter telling us to play the game.
It's true. It was a very like intense moment when you see the scene with Sayori hanging. I was sitting on the couch playing, and Molly was in the other room, and I just was like, "Welp, found the disturbing shit."
Yep.
Because up until that point, like it was a decline to that, but it's still just like a kind of silly dating game, right? And then there you go, and it's like they play it to full effect. It's vibrating.
I think right here is like where the game really sort of shows its hand in terms of like, what is the cool thing that this game is doing that you don't see in other stuff. And it's this thing it does with the saves. I mean, not specifically that, but like that is one way that this game is breaking the fourth wall and playing with its video game nature. Making the video gaminess of the game a central part of how it tells its story. This thing where it like, it restricts your access to your previous save games because this is an irreversible act and it cannot be undone. That's great. And then you can reload the game. You can start a brand new game, and Sayori is gone. She's dead. She's not back. But she's not dead. She was never there. The title screen where she would have been on the title screen is this weird glitched out image that's like made up of tiny sprite pieces of all of the other characters. And all the other, and when you jump into the game, it's as if she was never there. And
kind of, though, it's funny. It's interesting because it has the first dialogue. Like, the girl who lives down the street comes running wildly at me. It's the same opening dialogue. Then he goes like, and it like glitches out, and then that scene's done, and you're in the school, and it basically like erases her from that original scene.
Yeah.
So it's not that she wasn't even there from the beginning. She's kind of there, but then it pulls it back, and it's no, hold on, she's not here.
And this becomes like a huge kind of like, I guess, theme of the game, or like thing that it plays with a lot, is this idea that like these characters have been ripped out of the game and they've left this kind of, Sayori shaped hole literally like in the game, in the code. I mean, something that like, this is a bit of like a nerdery here, but like this game is built on a system called RenPy, which is a bad pun. But it's as I understand it, it's like a Python scripting based visual novel game engine. I know about this because I've played other games that have used this, but we're not talking about those. But like this felt very, and I'll also give this game total credit for being like the most polished thing I've seen built on that system, like absolutely bar none. I mean, not like I have a ton of experience, but anyway, this being like a Python script based thing, like it's these games are essentially a big folder full of Python scripts, graphic files, and some other associated stuff running kind of within a little shell. And the first thing that happened the first thing that I thought about when this happened was like they just deleted some files from the game. Like it really kind of reads like this is a corrupted game. Very carefully done. Like this is I think, like, there's lots of little ways that it tells you that something has gone wrong with your game files. Sounds play too fast or too slow. Graphics are too large or too small. They look wrong. They are inverted. They're missing chunks. Text shows up with this weird font that looks like the font weight is wrong, or the font files have been corrupted. Tons of little stuff is suddenly going wrong in this game because of the absence of Sayori. And it does a really good job of sort of selling you that like these are glitches. This is not like horror movie stuff. This is like, this game is breaking.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy because like I love how they make you have the same conversations but in different context. So like instead of it being Sayori who's like pitching joining the literature club to you, it's Monica, but like you're saying the same things, but now it's Monica who is saying the sort of
Sayori's
stuff
lines,
to get you to come to literature club. And it's really well handled, and I love the visual cues that the game is not over. Like, so you encounter Sayori having hung herself or hanged herself, and it goes back to the title screen, but like, yeah, it's like the button that says new game is just like totally screwed up, right? So like I need to keep going. This isn't just, it's not done. Like there's something new about this. And just the sort of refresh of it is really handled well. And there's no tutorialization of
That's
it.
That's a really good point. I'm going to compare this to a game that it is nothing like, except in this very small way. But my game of the year this year was Nier Automata, which is a phenomenal game. And the one thing that it shares with this is that it is a game that is designed to be played through multiple times, but each time that you play through it, it's an utterly different experience. And at the end of the first playthrough of Nier Automata, it comes to an end that is very like, this is the end of the game. It could easily be the end of the game. And it returns you to the title screen. And I am positive that if they hadn't added a literal text note telling you to play it again, that many people would have said, okay, I'm done with Nier Automata. Put it, taken the disc out of their PlayStation, and they would have been done. But the publisher, not even the developer, put a note at the end of the game that says something like, this is not the end of the game. This game is intended to be played through multiple times. Each playthrough is a unique experience. We hope you'll continue playing and discover all there is to see in Nier Automata, or something like that. And, signed Platinum Games and Square Enix, or something like that. And like, this is such a much cleaner and more, I mean, they're doing totally different things, but like, this is a much better way of like telling you like,
and
hey,
now the real game begins.
Keep going. Because first of all, it's almost a cliffhanger, but then, the title screen being all corrupted and the new game text being messed up and everything. That was great. Cool moment in the game.
We've seen a lot of faux glitching in games. I don't want to even mention the list because some people who haven't played those will think they're spoilers, but I can think of at least 4 or 5 games we've played for short game alone that have faux glitching as part of the game. This one is one of the more integral to the stories.
Yeah.
Like this and Pony Island are the two that like
I was thinking Pony Island
it's
too,
part
as
of the
well.
story, and I don't think there's spoilers if you're past spoiler break. 'Cause it's integral. Pony Island's on the second screen of the game.
And I'm going to say something that might
Not a
theoretically
spoiler.
spoil a little something for a particular game that I 100% recommend. I think this game would have done more for me and been more surprising and interesting to me if I hadn't already played Undertale.
Yeah, I was gonna mention that, but I wasn't sure if that was.
Yeah, I don't want. I'm sorry to anybody who, and I won't say any specifics about Undertale other than that it's a phenomenal game that does also use its gaminess in very interesting ways. They're doing very different things, but like that, I just it's sort of a magic trick that once you've seen it done, it's still impressive in its execution, but it's less surprising. This game is, it's a different magician doing the same trick that Undertale did towards the end. And Undertale had a lot more going for it than just that trick, too. This one is really playing on that trick. So I think, while I still think this game is really cool, and I love the way that it executes this, it's essentially like, it's all of the value of this game is sort of in its unveiling of its, the little magic trick of, and you thought you were playing a video game, but in fact, this video game is aware that it's a video game and it's
playing you.
It's playing you. You're being played. Like this game, it entirely rests on that. Whereas like Undertale had that concept in it, and yet it also had a ton of other stuff that I loved. So I think if this game might have hit a little less strong for me because of that.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. The impact of it is less because you've seen it before, but I do think that they were trying to accomplish different emotional weights.
That's very true. Yeah.
And while it uses a similar trick about like the gaminess of it, I do think playing off of the tropes of like dating sims and what you're expecting from it, and also the fact that like the first 2 hours of the game or however long it takes you is like a straight up and down, gaming sim, is a unique experience. So I would, it feels a little like shorting it to say like if you've played Undertale, then don't
skip this, but it's also a very much shorter experience, and it's got an entirely different emotional impact.
Yeah, it's different other than its mechanic, and that one mechanic.
I am not a dating sim person, we've established, and I don't play a ton of horror games. So with those caveats in mind, I really was wondering kind of to what end, what is this game going at? If it's pure scare, it works. But is there a deeper message? I
kind of don't know or think so.
I don't think it matters, but I just am curious, just because a lot of games that go meta have an extra like, and this is the moral of the stories, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, it's totally fine if it's just to scare the pants off you, because that's great. I just don't know if that's true.
Yeah, when we got to this point in the game, like right after Sayori's suicide, I really thought like, okay, this game has a message, and it's a message about mental health and suicide. And I was like, wow, it's actually doing a pretty good job at that. And it's like it's doing it through horror, which is, interesting. But like I thought it did a pretty good job discussing Sayori's mental health. And I thought, okay, this is a game about mental health. And it's not like once Sayori is sort of quote unquote out of the picture, the game is about other things. And what it seems to be mostly about, what I thought was really fascinating about it is that it is mostly a game about Monica.
Or that everyone has mental illness.
Well, I suppose so, yeah.
Like that might be it, but yeah, it is about Monica.
Yeah.
Because Monica ends up being the megalomaniac psychopath.
Yeah.
Puppet master.
I mean, we should probably talk about the other endings that happen before we reach Monica's ending, but they're both sort of like just scary things that happen on the way to the true end, or I guess not, I don't know if the true ending is like a term of art in these sorts of games. I'm not sure if this is the quote unquote true ending, but like Monica's ending. So before you get to the sort of final ending with Monica, there are some distressing things that happen with the other characters. The most memorable for me is, it's obvious that all of the girls are in the absence of Sayori. With the game seeming to glitch, they are getting less and less well, you know?
Sane.
Yes, things are going wrong with all of them. And you've actually, by this point, learned a lot about their home lives, and all of them have some things that are a little bit distressing in their lives. Natsuki, she has, I guess, abusive father, something like that, if I'm remembering correctly.
I don't remember, a relative of some sort. Yeah.
And Yuri, Yuri has always been a bit of a goth, right? But like her like dark streak seems to be getting stronger and stronger. And as you're playing through the game, sort of a second time, you're having to make a lot of the same choices. Like, do I spend time with Yuri? Do I read manga with Natsuki? Like, but they become more unhinged and dark stuff starts happening. The most disturbing for me was that there's a scene where Yuri stabs herself to death with a knife. She asks you to like stay late in the club room, and she is distressed about, I don't remember what, and just
she's getting all these heart palpitations whenever she hangs out with you.
Yeah.
And Monica even is like, you shouldn't hang out with her. She's crazy and unhinged.
Yeah.
And then the game makes you hang out with her anyway.
Yeah, and she's so in love with you that she stabs herself to death with a knife, and then falls dead on the floor of the club room in a very graphic image. And then the game apparently continues to glitch out such that you can't leave. And so there's this incredibly long shot of her corpse slowly beginning to decompose over the course of like a long weekend. And the player character it doesn't give you any choice.
There.
You just sit there. And I think you're like clicking through like it's not even like text. I think it's like dots or something. Like you're clicking through nothing or something. So like
you have to interact with the screen. So you can't just like put it on and wander off and make tea and come back. That's not a joke for people who play the game. Like I did try to go make tea and be like, maybe the timer will run out. And I was like, nope, I was supposed to advance the whole time.
The game enforces that you have to stare at this corpse for like several minutes, which makes up an entire like day and night cycle twice in the game. The sun rises and sets outside the club room window, and Yuri's body begins to not like, I mean, we're talking about one weekend. It's not like falling apart, but you can see that it's, getting gross. That was really distressing. And there's a similar like more glitchy but distressing thing that happens with Natsuki. Anyway, long story short, the game gets really glitchy and really distressing and really graphic. And all of this kind of leads up to, I guess, what would be the sort of final end of the game with Monica.
Yeah, she shows up and she's like, oops, sorry about that. And then I'm going to delete these problematic characters. And she just deletes the character files and then sits and talks to you for a really long time.
Yeah, actually.
She knows she's a character.
I don't want to gloss over that. Like this is one of the coolest things that the game asks you to do. Something that's in a way even cooler than anything that like other fourth wall breaking games that I've played have ever asked me to do in this game. Like Monica knows that she is a character in the game. She wants your affections and attention, and she wants the other characters out of the picture
because she's playing the game like
right.
She is established her prime directive, and that is to date you, and that's all she wants. And she will take out, like, she deletes everyone else in the game. Like,
no, she doesn't delete them. She insists that you delete them. That's
correct.
The coolest damn thing. Like,
yes.
she tells you have to delete them, and you have to exit the game. Go, and I'm on a Mac. I'm assuming that the process is similar but slightly different on a Windows PC. You have to go find the game executable. So wherever Steam installed it, or wherever, in my case, the itch.io installer application installed it, you have to right-click on that game file and choose Show Package Contents and dig into the .app bundle of the game. find in the resources folder a folder called characters, and inside that folder there is a character file for every character in the game. Monica.char, Yuki.chr, etc. And she will not like let you continue until you go delete them. You have to delete those other characters. And then when you go back into the game, she's like, now it can be just the two of us forever. And you're sort of floating in this, the club room has become this kind of void in space. And this scene that plays out after that is like kind of cool, but sort of haunting. Like they wrote a lot of dialogue for you to sit there and have very slowly with Monica. Monica's like, now we get to be here together forever. And so she'll tell you about herself. If you click through, there's quite a lot of dialogue to read here if you want to take the time to read it. She'll tell you, lots of little details about the game that you'd played through. Like, for example, that she was responsible for the other characters going insane because she was trying to get rid of them by making tweaks to their scripts in the game code. She was trying to, she made Sayori depressed by basically writing it into her code in order to try to get her away from you. She tried to get rid of the other girls in other various ways. Things like Yuri's suicide were side effects of them having to operate with bad code. Monica is an amateur coder. She's not so good with RenPy. And so she was trying just to get rid of them, but she ended up driving them all insane. And then in the end, just deciding it was better to completely remove them from the game. Which is that's a cool ending twist. I thought I was on board for a game about mental illness. Making that mental illness be the consequence of somebody messing with the game code kind of diminishes that aspect of it a little bit. So I felt a little bit less than cool about that side of things, but it's a cool twist. I thought it was, and that whole conversation is really worth playing through. Very early in that conversation, for the impatient, Monica will almost straight up tell you what you need to do in order to escape that endless ending. You can quit the game during that conversation with Monica, and when you boot it up, no start screen, goes straight to the room with Monica. And Monica will say, "What just happened? Did you quit the game? Never do that. When you do that, I get lost in this horrible void and I'm never sure if it's going to end or not. And it's like hell. Never quit the game again." And, of course you can do that and you do that, come back and she's, "Why are you doing that? I thought we wanted to be here together, happy forever." That whole scene with Monica at the end is straight up good creepy shit.
Yeah.
And she will pretty much straight up tell you pretty early in that conversation, but there's plenty more to read if you want to sit in the void with Monica, that the only way to get rid of her is to delete her character file. And so, of course, you've already done that for the other characters. You now know that you can. She'll tell you, whatever you do, don't do that. And of course, that means you should do that.
Of course.
Yeah. So, I don't know. It's a pretty darn cool game. That stuff was cool. The whole ending with Monica was very cool. I don't know what it was trying to say. I thought I knew it was trying to say, but then no, it wasn't saying what I thought it was trying to say about mental illness. So maybe I don't know. I don't know what the point of all this was, but it's certainly cool and creepy.
It may be simplifying it, but maybe that is the point. It's just meant to be weird and creepy. I do think it's trying to touch on a lot of these things, and at the end of the day, give you a general uneasiness. And I think that's fine. I don't think it has to have a big message, but it's made you feel a lot of different things. Mm-hmm. And I think that's, successful.
So, and I guess if we're talking about the final end to end, if you do delete Monica, and you probably should, because, she's a kind of a crazy monster, although a slightly understandable one. She finally confesses as she's sort of disappearing from the game that she didn't actually delete the other characters. she couldn't bring herself to completely delete them. She just removed them from the game. And so sort of as her like final, I guess, dying act, she restores them. And if you start the game back up, you get like a little bit of a final scene, I think, and then the credits roll. I don't remember exactly what happened between that point and the credits, but the credits of this game were pretty memorable.
I wonder what happens if you delete Monica when she tells you to delete the other girls.
I don't know. I did read, there's a lot of...
I'm sure someone's tried it.
Yeah.
I mean, it seems like something that I'm
sure
like...
somebody's tried
I
it.
might have done
That's
it if
a
I
great
hadn't...
question.
If I wasn't playing it for the show, like that's something I would totally do. I'd been like, you told me to delete the other girls, but you deserve to be deleted.
Yeah, I don't know exactly. I do know that, like, I read on a, I think it was on the Steam forum or something, that like you can obviously, like, you can go into those files and delete those character files at literally any point. It does have endings for almost every variation on that. For example, you can delete Monica before you ever boot up the game, and it starts up the game without her, and Sayori is the president of the literature club, and I think there's some sort of like quick, like scary ending that it does based on that. So there's a lot of little variations on these endings that you can get if you delete those character files at different points. I guess, if that's the kind of thing you're super interested in, go read a wiki. I watched a quick video on YouTube that caught me up on a couple of endings that I didn't have the time to go for, or didn't, crack the code on how to get. Something else just on that point, on that note, is that if you open up those character files, they look like just sort of random code, but there's sort of an ARG element to this. Folks have decoded those character files, and if they're all in like base 64 something or other or something. You can Google it, and other folks have done the hard work for you. But those character files have things like creepy images in them or poems. They all kind of represent something about the character. They're not actually related to the game code, of course. They're just something that's there in the bundle, because they don't want to be crashing your Mac. But it is kind of neat that there's sort of something with those files if you care to like dig through the code.
Yeah, that's interesting. I was sitting here thinking, like, there's no way those files are actually what the game is looking at. They're just like, if they're there, then this, Mm-hmm. So I do like that they went in and like at least made them still worthwhile if you actually looked at them.
I really kind of liked the ending song. The game actually has it has a good soundtrack. Like, I really like the song that it plays throughout the game. It's like a cute little bouncy, feels like very much like a anime background music kind of song. And the ending theme is, Monica has mentioned several times throughout the game that she plays piano, and the ending theme is Monica playing the song of the game, but with lyrics. She sings along to it, and it's actually a kind of a sweet little song that kind of relates to the story of the game. Monica's sort of final act is that she's, though she's being deleted, she brings back the other characters because, she's kind of, I guess, like a final act of like humanity or something. And the song she sings is kind of like about giving up someone that she wants to be with because they'll be more happy without her, which is like, it kind of plays to the character, and it's a cute song, and it's nice to hear like suddenly the song that you've been hearing. It's been stuck in my head for a while. Throughout the game has these lyrics that are sung to you by Monica. It was kind of a good ending. I don't know. I thought that worked for me. I don't know I don't know how much intelligent stuff I have to say about this game. This is I don't know what the point of this game was other than to be creepy. I know it feels like there's stuff here that like theme stuff that I'm not quite putting my hand on, but I don't know. But it worked for me on that level. It's cute, and then it's horrifying, and then it's, I guess, cute again. It's definitely worth playing.
I think that might be the elevator pitch for everyone. It's cute, it's horrifying, it's cute, it's worth playing.
I don't think I would call this cute. And stop. Like, I think that it's I think like when you're like, oh, that girl's so cute, I think I want to sit next to her decomposing body for 2 days.
No,
like, I don't
that's
think
not cute.
You get to call the game cute anymore. Like, I think it revoked its cute privileges like 45 minutes in.
Okay, very, very valid argument there, Laura. I think the aesthetic probably works more for me than I would like it to, and more for me than I would like to admit.
Aw, weeb.
I know. And I thought that like the closing song was cute. But yeah, I don't know. It's definitely a distressing, disturbing. There's something kind of great about clashing super cute moe imagery with horror and nastiness that just heightens them both in a way for me. So, you know.
I think that's part of the point, right? I
Yeah.
mean, that's what this game was trying to do, was to take this genre that was it was all about like cute and like I'm gonna exploit, you know, women and dating and all that, and they're like, let's take that and let's make it about literature, and then also death and you know, and destruction and depression and
I mean, even with psychological horror, like I really did think this was gonna be like smoke monsters confronting your worst nightmares. Like I thought it was gonna be a little more Until Dawn-ish, like a little more classic Japanese horror, like
Yeah.
Hiroshima themed, like monsters coming out of things.
Yeah,
Like,
where's the
expecting,
dark-haired girl crawling out of the well at the back of the classroom, right? Like,
Yeah, this was much more like dark teen girl shit.
well, I mean,
Dragons.
part of that I think is that this is horror through American horror lens, and also I think through I'd say that the brand of horror that this is more like the copy pasta online, you know, very modern style of horror than like your traditional Japanese horror or even like traditional American horror movie style horror. This is the like, you know, this is the horror of, you know, reading a message board post about somebody who bought a copy of Pokemon and it was haunted. It was a haunted copy of Pokemon. Like you're, yeah, no, that's a thing I read online once. That's like this is a game that kind of delivers on that like message board rumor kind of idea of, I played this game and hey, something creepy that I wasn't expected happened in the game. You know, this game, there's something wrong with this game, you know? This is horror via 4chan, you know, and then looped back into a game. Like it's this sort of like very extremely online horror. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the current, like the type of, it's expected but it's still unexpected.
Yeah.
Sort of thing. Like, you know, the ground that it's treading on, but it still presents itself in sort of in a unique way.
So thank you very much for listening to this episode as we struggled to discuss this game. And thank you so much to the listeners who suggested it. I probably would not have been able to convince my co-hosts to try this game without so many of our listeners writing us on Twitter and through our contact form on our website, specifically requesting that we play and talk about this game. You know, I'll try anything, but like convincing my co-hosts to play a dating sim with moe anime girls, I guarantee you, not an easy feat. So
this is maybe like number 9 or number 10 on Reagan's like moe dating sims that he's recommended to us.
Oh, that's not true.
And it's no,
I am here for this slander.
yeah.
But thank you guys so much for recommending this game. And if you have other games that you think that we ought to try, no matter how odd or spooky or anime they are, just write us and let us know. You can go to www.theshortgame.net where we've got a contact form. That's probably the best way to get in touch with us. Or you can go to Twitter and find us on Twitter @_shortgame. Also, of course, you can leave us iTunes reviews. We always really appreciate those. If you liked the show, the best and only way to support the show, apart from moral support, which we of course appreciate, but the most direct way that you can support the show is just go leave us an iTunes review, and also tell a friend about the show. We love to hear that folks were referred to the show by a friend. That seems to be the main way. Word of mouth is the way that people find out about this show, and we really appreciate that. So if you know somebody who you think might like the show, please do tell them. I've been Reagan Kelly, and you can find me on Twitter at ReaganK. Laura, where can people find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Laura J. Nash.
And Nate, where can people find you?
At Nate STL. And I just want to say it's been fun to make fun of Reagan this whole episode. But, if this is your genre, if you're into dating, it's fine. I like to make fun of Reagan. And so if I see an opportunity, him and his Freedom Planet t-shirt that he's wearing currently, I seize the opportunity, but it's a fine genre. So
thank you, Nate.
I've made it. I wanted to get that in there at the end.
All right. Now that all of our listeners have quit listening in disgust, you sneak that in at the end for the folks still hanging on. Thank you, Nate.
Yeah.
And thank you, listeners, for joining us on this episode of The Short Game.